Robbie asked me to do this, and I'm still not quite sure why he did, but y'all gonna get what you get. So here we go. So I always think Robbie's told you a little bit about me. I think it's important to know who you're talking to. So I always work with visual aids, so that's usually helpful. So I was raised at South. Oh no, you didn't tell me it goes backwards if you get the other way.
Oh, sorry.
So I was raised at Southside. I've been there since I was 2 weeks old. We've always been a big family over there. So I've always been blessed with that. I've never had to worry about whether or not I would be supported by my Christian family. We all do everything together. I always have, always will. I was blessed to grow up in a Christian home. These two right here. I was raised by 2 Sunday school teachers, one of which is with me today. So I didn't get away with very much. They usually tried to keep me from doing things that were completely stupid. Most of the time it worked. Sometimes it didn't. But that's who we are. I have one sister, so she's 10 years older than me. So essentially I had 2 mothers growing up, which was not as much fun as it sounds like it is. But we love each other. See, there's picture proof of it. She's not here, so you can't ask her any different. And then I teach the middle school girls class at Southside. So right now I have 2. So that's Emma and Kaylee. Those are my girls. We take a trip every Christmas to do angel tree shopping with their money. So that's their whole big thing they do every year, and they always look forward to it. And we usually end up buying a lot of snacks and playing a lot of games in the meantime. I'm a mother to Vivi Ray. She is here, and she probably wishes she could crawl under the table right now, but she loves me too. She has opened up my life to a lot of different experiences. As parenthood does that, right? When you become a mother, you do things you never thought you would do. In our situation, she has pet rats. Here they are.
Oh, no.
So there she is. And there's currently 4 of them. There was 5. Paisley, rest in peace. But now we have Pepper, Pearl, Prudence, Pepita, right? And next week we're getting Ping and Pong. So she has 6 of them. So that's that. And just in case we got bored and wanted the other side of the spectrum, we also have a Great Dane. This is Atticus. He looks distinguished. He has about 3 brain cells, and he can't use more than one at a time. That's just what he does. He lives his life, and he's very cute, and that's how God made him. All right. I'm getting married in 2 weeks to this fine fellow. His mother's here with us, too. Ain't he cute? Look at him. He is a police officer, and we met when I subpoenaed him into one of my court hearings. I didn't know that that's how you were supposed to find Prince Charming. I've been doing it really wrong. But anyway, in 2 weeks, I get to make that official. And that's the other part of it. I am an attorney, so I usually do family law cases. So that means that I have the blessing of working with families through usually their worst days. Every once in a while, I get them on their best days. We get to do adoptions and fun things too. But typically, people don't like coming to see me. So I try to show grace through all situations that I'm placed in with that. But anyway, y'all didn't come here to talk about me. So Robbie told me that our theme was Rise and Shine, and I started thinking about what that meant to me. And for me, it's something I heard my whole life growing up, usually from my mother, right? Did you all have that problem too? Every school morning, what would your mama come in and say? Rise and shine. And if she was really in a good mood, she'd sing it, right? She would go, rise and shine, and what is it? And see, there was a problem with that because I didn't want to rise or shine. I wanted to sleep. And I didn't feel like doing either of those things. Instead, I looked like this. And I have understood now, becoming a mother, that that's normal, right? I didn't want to rise and shine. I was the epitome of the 5 more minutes kid. I still don't. No. I always had excuses. I would look at her and say, but Mama, I've already picked out my clothes. It won't take me as long. Or Mama, I'll just want to eat breakfast. Or Mama, I'm so comfortable. Just give me 5 more minutes, right? And we've all been there and done that. But I started thinking about it. How many times do we do that in our Christian life as well? Because it's one thing to want to sleep for 5 more minutes. But it's another thing when it's much more important, right? So I started thinking about that. How often do we make excuses? Maybe it's, I don't have time to teach that class, or I don't have time to help with Vacation Bible School, or there's so many people that know so much more about that than I do, it'd be better to let somebody else do it. And how often do we say we're too tired? Right? We may stay too busy with work or school or our families, and we'll say, I can't possibly squeeze in the time to help or to pray more, or to read our Bible more. That's something I'm guilty of. I start every year with a Bible reading plan, and I am going to do it, and if I do it till about midway through February, and then you start losing, you start having to make up 2 days at a time, and then the more you just go, it just falls away, doesn't it? Because we're always so busy. We're too busy. We're too tired for God a lot of times. What about just being so comfortable doing what you're doing, being in your snuggly bed, right? I don't want to change God. I'm comfortable. I like where I'm at. How many times have we said something like this when we're asked to serve? I'm scared. Or, I've never done that before. Or, that makes me uncomfortable. That's a little risky. It may not work, right? I've been guilty of that. So, all of this leads us to being in what I call spiritual coma, right? We're in our bed, we're comfortable, but we're not growing. And then we wonder why we don't see any spiritual growth. Well, why would we? We're not doing anything different, right? We're not reading our Bible. We're not acting like we should. So we don't see spiritual growth in our churches or our youth groups or even in our own walk with Christ. So I thought we'd take a moment to look at a few figures from the Bible and see what we think would have happened if they hadn't rise and shine. So we're going to use all women because this is a girls' day. That's what we're going to do. So the first one's Rahab, right? We've all heard about Rahab, right? And usually what we hear about Rahab at the beginning of her life wasn't good. But we know that she risked her life to hide Joshua's spies from the king, right, in order to save herself and her family. But couldn't Rahab have given excuses? Think about everything she could have said. Because what does the Bible say about her? She easily could have said, I'm not the right type of woman for this, God. This isn't, you don't need me. Because the Bible says she was a harlot, right? We all know what that means. And that would have been really easy for her. She's not someone that we would think would be in the biblical who's who of faith, right? She didn't come from that life. But she is. She didn't make that excuse. What if she had said something like, it's too dangerous for me? After all, you got to think. If the king had found out that she was hiding those spies, she would have been gone. Her and her whole family, gone. But she didn't make that excuse, right? Instead, what did she do? She trusted in God no matter what the risks were. And we know why she trusted in God because Joshua 2:11 tells us, right? It tells us what she told the spies. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. See, Rahab didn't come from a background of knowing God. This was kind of new. But she knew who God was, and that was enough. She didn't make excuses. So was it worth it? We know it was, right? In Matthew 1, we read something pretty interesting. So Matthew 1 is the chapter that most people skip over in their Bible reading plan because it's the begat so-and-so begat so-and-so, right? But what it does is it tells you the genealogy of Jesus in Matthew 1. And guess who's in there? Rahab. Rahab the harlot, Rahab the woman who wasn't worth anything, or who thought she wasn't. Rahab was in the line that God chose to bring forth his son. And she's also mentioned in Hebrews 11, the Faith Hall of Fame, right? Rahab's pointed out there. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool for a woman that had a horrible reputation and whose biggest victory is for lying to a king to be in both of those places. Okay. So that's all because she didn't make excuses, right? Now what about Ruth? Has everybody heard about Ruth? Yeah. So what if Ruth had done the thing that was most typical and most comfortable for women of her day? Does everybody remember the story of Ruth and Naomi and Orpah? Whenever I was teaching, not the girls I have now, but I used to have the middle school boys. And every time we would do Ruth, they would say Oprah. It was every time. And so Naomi had two daughter-in-laws, and their name was Ruth and Oprah. And it was, yeah. She's like, I know who one of them was. Yes, you do. And that was what we laughed. But you know what? They remembered it after we switched the two letters. But anyway, so remember Naomi had lost her husband, and she lost both of her sons. And that left 3 women alone, which is a lot scarier than it is now, right? We can work and we can do things now. Back then you couldn't. You had to have a man to help you. You couldn't stand up for yourself. You couldn't earn a wage at all. And so there was a time where Ruth was really in a pickle. She didn't have a husband. She didn't have anyone to care for. And so what did Naomi originally tell her daughter-in-laws to do? To go back home, right? They said, go back home and go to your family where there's men who can provide for you and take care of you. And that's what's typically done. And that's what Orpah chose to do. And we shouldn't falter. It made sense. It was the smart thing to do. It was the easy thing to do. And it was the most comfortable thing to do. Remember, that's one of our words. We don't want to stay comfortable. But that's not what Ruth did, right? She stayed. So we know that Naomi and Ruth were very, very close, right? And Ruth loved her very much, and she chose love out of comfort. But she put herself out on a limb. Because now you didn't have 3 women, you had 2 women with no means to support themselves, right? But was it worth it? We know it was, right? What we know happened was one of the greatest love stories in the Bible, right? She met Boaz, and Boaz is great, right? Boaz fell in love with her when he saw her gleaning in his field, and he had so much respect for what Ruth had done for her mother-in-law that he took both of them into his household, right, and provided for them. But what did Ruth have to get there? She had to have the faith to go against the norm and get out of her comfort zone. If she hadn't, if she'd have gone back home, she wouldn't have met him. So, interesting fact, Ruth is also mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus in Matthew 1, because guess who Boaz's mama was? Rahab. So see, it's kind of fun how God will just interlock everything together. So we have 2 women. We have one who didn't think she was worth anything, who made one of the greatest men in the Bible. Okay. So we've covered women who didn't make excuses, and we've covered a woman who wasn't afraid to get out of her comfort zone. But what about a woman that was just tired? When I think of tired, I think of Sarah. Okay? So we know who Sarah was, right? Sarah was the wife of Abraham. And what's the thing that Sarah is known for? It's usually 2 words. Everybody says, Sarah, what'd she do? Laughed. Sarah laughed, right? That's what she's known for as part of her legacy in the Bible. And why did she laugh? She had gone 90 years wanting a child. She was tired. She thought she was already past that. She had moved on with that part of her life, but she wanted a baby more than anything. And so when God let her know that she was going to have a baby, what'd she do? She laughed. That was crazy, right? When I was going through things, and I'm glad that y'all are here today, because when I was going through things, when I was reading Genesis, I picked up that she was 90, and there's a 90-year-old lady that has my whole heart, and her daughter-in-law and grandchild are here. And so we recently got to have a party for Miss Justine. Here she is at her 90th birthday party. And I started thinking about that. She is the greatest single example of what a Christian woman should be that I've ever seen in my life, right? I can promise you, though, that if somebody told Miss Justine that she was going to have a baby, Miss Justine would laugh. Yeah, all right, she went all
Well, first she'd say, what?
Wow. But once she got it, she'd
Once
be
she
like,
actually heard it.
Y'all nuts. And why is that? Yeah, she's raised her babies, right? She's got other things to do. So she's too busy being a grandma and great-grandma and probably planting a garden that she's going to war about her kids having. But that's her thing. Makes the best beans in the world. That and ham. But she's got other things going on, right? If somebody told Miss Justine that she was going to have a baby, she would think that was funny too. So I think Sarah kind of gets a bad rap, but I think we kind of have to put ourselves in her spot. So you know what Sarah was thinking. God, I'm too old for this. I'm tired. I'm done. Right? I'm done with that. But what do we know happened? In spite of that initial laugh, Sarah came to believe and understand what God had in store for her, right? And in Hebrews 11, remember that Faith Hall of Fame again, the women do pretty good in Hebrews 11, by the way. But in Hebrews 11 through 12, what does it tell us? It says, and by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise, right? She knew if God said it, God would follow through with it. So as from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. So from Sarah's son Isaac came countless nations and even kings. And why did that happen? It's because she had the faith, even though she was tired. So what can we learn from these women? What I took from it is that God will get you through situations that we don't even see how we can get through. He's done it for me. I'm sure he's done it for lots of you all. When something happens to us, we just won't quit. We don't know what to do. He'll get you through. And God will provide for you even when you don't see how it's possible. If we could fix the problems, we wouldn't need God, right? God will do more than we ever even see coming. And God will keep his promises. We learned that for Sarah, right? Here's what we can't do. You can't get all the good stuff without giving your good stuff, right? We can't make excuses. We got to be like Rahab. We got to do it anyway, even though it's hard. We can't stay in our comfort zone. We got to be like Ruth. We got to do what we want to do, even if it's scary. And life's scary. Christianity can be scary. And we can't be too tired to follow his plan. We've got to be like Sarah. We've got to say, God, if this is what you want me to do, we'll do it, right? So instead, we have to rise and shine. And I'll leave you with some words from Isaiah 40. This comes from 30 and 31, and everybody's already heard them, I'm sure. And it says that even youths will grow tired and weary, and young men will stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength, and they will soar on wings like eagles. They will run, and they will not grow weary, and they will walk, and they won't be faint. So what I take from these women, and what I hope you all take from them too, is we can do lots of good things. We can do lots of great things, but we've got to let God help us. And we've got to do what he wants us to do in order for that to happen.